We're recording this, yes? Awesome. And we're live. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for everyone being here. Let's give folks a couple minutes of grace to roll in. Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody ate. I hope we slept, got our naps in. Hope we drank our water today. Can you guys hear the music? Nice. Welcome, welcome. See you, Nicole. Welcome, welcome. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. And Manuela, you're good? I see you, Yaira. I see you. What's up? What's up? Okay. I think we should get started. Give me 2 seconds. All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Jock. All right. We'll jump right into, I will introduce myself. I'll say a little word about Dream Defenders. InCultured will say a little word about themselves as well. We'll jump into our bios of our amazing panelists tonight. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, cool, cool, cool. Shout out to everyone for coming. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I cannot thank you enough for being here tonight. The response to this event has been humbling. My name is Marjua. I'm an Afro-Caribbean writer, storyteller, and former music journalist with a political commitment toward the dignity, sovereignty, and liberation of Black and Indigenous people throughout Latin America, and more personally in present-day Haiti and DR. On behalf of Dream Defenders, a Black-led political formation fighting for freedom, self-determination, and a world where all oppressed people have what they need, on behalf of them, I welcome you. And I'll leave it to Saudi to introduce InCultured.
Thank you so much, Marjua. Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Saudi Garcia. I'm the Executive Director of InCultured Company. And InCultured Company is a home for Dominicans and Haitians doing justice and peace work. We recognize that our struggles are interconnected, and the more that we can make those connections, the closer we are to freedom. As an organization, our work is rooted in equipping Dominicans and Haitians with the skills to become effective advocates for peace, justice, healing, and reconciliation. We are an organization that is composed of both Dominicans and Haitians who believe that our island is sacred, the island of Haiti is sacred territory, and that we are interconnected, and that our love, liberation, and belonging is connected. We are so thrilled to be able to be here with you all, and we are so looking forward to this webinar, the information that we're going to get, and also to sharing some actions and ways to further your knowledge after. So thank you so much for all of you for being here. And yeah, I hand it back to you, Marjorie.
Thank you so much, Sally. Our goal here, everyone, was honestly to just have this conversation, to provide some clear and basic information, facts, and understanding of what is currently happening in Haiti. There's only so much that we can get in an hour, hour and a half done, but we aim to cover the highlights, provide some homework and action items that you can take back to your families. And I'm gonna jump right into our panelists and right into our questions thereafter. We have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Gerda Nicolas, who is a professor in the Educational and Psychological Studies Department at University of Miami and the School of Education and Human Development. She's a former Secretary General of the Caribbean Alliance of National Psychological Association and the co-founder of IT Community Trust. She's representing Tiguave before migrating to the US in her teens. Welcome, everyone, Dr. Gerda Nicolas. Next, we have Michidael Sir. Michidael migrated to the US in 2013 from Pétionville, Haiti, and takes great pride in using her experiences abroad to fuel her passion for disenfranchised communities here. She is a political organizer based in Miami, Florida, and cares deeply about uprooting systems of political oppression that impact Black and Brown communities locally and nationwide. As the organizing director of Florida Student Power, she advises programs and campaigns for climate, immigration, and education justice. Welcome. Next, we have Yanata De Suver. Yanata is a best-selling author, marketing professor, performance poet, and TEDx motivational speaker. He serves as the first and only full-time entrepreneurship professor at Miami-Dade College and aims to shape Haitian narrative through film. His works are inspired by family history and Haitian events. Welcome. Next, we have Christina Francois. Christina is a first-generation Haitian American driven to amplify the voices of immigrant and diasporic communities. She works as a political scientist and strategist with a proven track record of engaging stakeholders across sectors to advocate for the needs of historically excluded communities. Living in Port-au-Prince as a teen gave her valuable perspective on the root causes and country conditions that forced many to seek refuge. Welcome. And last but certainly not least, Evan August, PhD, is an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. His work focuses on the psychological effects of structural anti-Blackness through the lens of Black liberation psychology. He is the chair of the Association of Black Psychologists Sawubona Healing Circle Program, a lead facilitator with InCultured Company, and a board member of the Institute of the Development of Human Arts. Welcome. And I'm sorry, I do want to introduce Dave Gerard, who we assigned as a Haitian Creole translator, but we're playing that by ear right now. He is originally from Jérémie, Haiti, currently living in Miami. Jay is a reggae dancehall singer, songwriter, and medical interpreter, which is very apt that Jérémie would produce a singer-songwriter because that is historically the city of poets. It's actually on my bucket list. Welcome. We're gonna jump right into the questions, folks, unless we have any reservations. Is everyone okay? Whew, thank you. Okay. There's been a lack of transparency with the US public and with the Haitian people in general about the removal of Ariel Henry and the installation of a 9-person council, which is now responsible for acting as the president of the country and establishing free and fair elections. As far as the average US citizen is concerned, Haiti is under the grips of gang violence, and Haiti's current status is, the fault of its own folks. In a few words, how would you explain to us what is actually happening in Haiti right now? And anyone can respond.
I can jump in. Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Okay,
Um, So, I mean, one thing to make clear is that what we see unfolding right now did not begin with the assassination of Jovenel Moise. It did not begin with, you know, the gangs blocking the airport a few months ago. It really dates back to 20 years ago. So when we look back at the return um, of Al-Yassid, what we see happening in the early 2000s is a lot of external players. And actually, I mean, obviously, we can date it back even further, and I'm sure that other folks will add even more context. But I think in looking at the gang situation in particular, seeing the proliferation of narco trafficking and gangs affiliated with political players and elite families and others, this is a cultural shift that ends up happening in the early 2000s that has only led to more and more violence. So we see in the early 2000s the beginning of kidnappings, and not really a state response to the kidnappings. And I think that's where we can pinpoint the breakdown in the Haitian state, I think. But I'll leave space for folks to add more.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Dr. Gilda, we had a little bit of a great conversation.
Yes, we sure did. Yeah, we sure did. So I appreciate hearing. So first of all, thank you so much. Thank you to Dream Fund for hosting this conversation. You know, there's sort of like a narrative out there on have we not had enough conversations about Haiti? And the answer is no. We have not had enough conversations. So really excited to be here with all my colleagues as well on this conversation. I think Christina really hits in the nail. Like, I think if we think about what's happening in Haiti to us only be related to the last couple of years, then we're wrong. And we would need to go really, really way back in terms of this particular experience. And I'm going back like 1915, occupation time, even before then, which I think is really is important. But I think it's also really important. So I'm in Haiti every month. Many of you know, just came back from Haiti in the midst of what people say. I was just in Port-au-Prince. I'm going back home again just in a couple of days. And so I'm home every month for the last 29 years. And I think it is important if we just use the current, since the assassination of Jovenel Moise as a starting point, not because it is the starting point, but as a short area to begin to understand. When that took place, a civil society group in Haiti came with a plan for addressing the situation in country in terms of leadership. So a civil group came together, created a plan, and the United States rejected that plan. And so let's be really clear. And that's why I said it's important for us to go back to 1915, because we're talking about occupation in 1915, that occupation mentality and process has not stopped. And I think it is important to ensure that people understand that piece. So the Haitian people came with a plan that was rejected by the international community, and the international community put in Ariel Henry as a de facto prime minister. The people of Haiti didn't know they had a prime minister until they saw a tweet that was put in on Twitter that announced that the country had a new prime minister. So therefore, the individual that was put in to lead the country wasn't selected or elected by the people of the country. It was selected by an international community. Okay. And as a result of that, the people in the country have continued to argue for a shift in that, because when you don't have individuals who are your own leader, they don't have your best interests at heart. So therefore, the interests of the Haitian people have not been at the forefront of the situation. 100%. So, and I know I need to pass the microphone to another people, but I'm going to say this about the gang, because Christina said the gang. Because the issue related to the gang piece, right, and so on, and the issue related to kidnapping is one that people in Haiti took, and I can count the number of trips people came from Haiti, went to Washington, D.C. to ask for the suspension of the guns going to Haiti. That is absolutely escalating the gang situation. It is something that could have been done something about, because we are a country that neither produce nor sell guns or sell ammunitions associated with it. That means if you disarm the gangs,
Right.
the arm, then there wouldn't be the issues that we are talking about here. So it is important, as we delve into this conversation tonight, that it is important that we suspend asking ourselves about what is wrong with those crabs that are in the barrel. It is important, as a part of this conversations, that we ask ourselves, given the fact that crabs are supposed to be in the ocean, and they were never supposed to be in a barrel to begin with, who puts the crabs in the barrel, right? And that is the larger question that we have to grapple with in terms of understanding the current situation in Haiti right now. Michi, Sherry, I'm turning the thing, my boba gaila.
Thank you. Thank
Merci
you
en
for
pile. Merci en pile, Yeda. I think for me, what I wanted to bring into the conversation was this piece around the transitional council, right? And I think for a lot of folks who probably don't have, or probably don't know or understand, how the council came into place. I think like there's information online on how that can take place. It was backed and initiated by CARICOM. Like I really don't want folks to feel like that is a viable solution, or it is the solution, or that it ends there, because it simply is not the solution, right? And I've had conversations with folks in my family, with folks back home about it, right? It just isn't. And given the current state of this transitional council that was set in place, it really isn't a solution that could really fix or put us on the trajectory for progress. And so I definitely wanted to add that component into the piece, because definitely don't want folks to feel that we have a solution with the council. The work continues, right? And given the current state of what's happening in the council, the divisions, the conflict, we definitely how that goes when it comes with power. It just isn't a solution. So like in terms of like what's happening right now, given, okay, the institution of the council, how it came about, definitely not a solution. And wanted to name that. And so I'll pass it over to you, Evan.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also just, again, first and foremost, honored to be here with everybody. Really grateful for this platform to talk about these things. And also a bit of foundation setting too, that we'll all get more into. One of the things I tend to see in these conversations at the onset is people respond to a point that Michi just made, for instance, or a point that Dr. Guetta just made, for instance, and say, well, what are Haitian people doing, right? Haitian people not doing anything, right? The UN has to provide this. International actors have to provide this because the Haitian people are not standing on their own 2 feet and providing. And the insidious, right, harmful nature of that is it erases a history of Haitian organizing, right? Populist, community-based organizing that we have a robust history of, right? Obviously, it's very easy to go back to the revolution, but we can talk about the Cauco Rebellion, right? Under the U.S. occupation, right? We could talk about the protests around the Petro-Caribe Fund, right? We could talk about Bois Calais if you want to. I've seen people protesting in Brooklyn screaming Bois Calais, right? And so these are population, people-based movements that are continually erased in our conversation. Right. And so I think as we have this conversation, we'll be rooting it in these kind of grassroots Haitian-led movements that exist that don't get put at the forefront nearly enough.
that are not in the headlines. Right. Thank you for bringing that into the conversation. Yanatha?
What I can add to that, and so this will be a shout out well, before I begin, thank you, Marjorie and the team for having this, as Dr. Nicola mentioned. IT Community Trust. I volunteer for IT Community Trust as well for several reasons. I truly believe entrepreneurship, well, there are 3 pillars that IT Community Trust does, is entrepreneurship, civic engagement, knowing the people who serve you, and knowing how to tap into those spaces to have those who are public servants to serve the community, to serve the public, and also climate as well. So when it comes to, as Dr. Gita said, how did these guns come in? We don't manufacture these guns. We don't produce these guns. We don't. So there's a entrepreneurial side of it, from the ports that are owned by the private, certain folks in the private sector. How do we change that, right? How do we find out what is the motivation behind all of that? And once we find the root cause, then we can build off of that. And going back to civic engagement, one of the pillars of IT community trust, we need to know, okay, how can we meet somewhere in the middle? How can the people talk to, as what Dr. Augusto was saying, how can we take that public movement and have partnerships with the private spaces to then, build and grow IT from where we want it to be?
Absolutely.
Can I just add one thing? Because because it is important, the foundation of this conversation tonight is crucial for everything else we're going to go. And as you said, Mara, this is like a 5 years conversation that we're going to try to do in 1.5 hours, which we understand is really difficult to be able to do. And it is important. I think what we're saying tonight is that we have to be able to go beyond what is given to us and what is shown to us, right? And so what Misha says about the council, for example, is this presidential council, and what people will probably say about Kenya and military forces and so forth, is what people tell you. And so the question is what's the backstory, right, behind that? This is a presidential council that is put in place, that the United States flew to Jamaica with CARICOM, where Haitians were not at the table, to create a presidential council that is supposed to be electing the very next interim prime minister and to elect the next president of the country. Now, this is also a country which is important for people to recognize that hasn't elected its own president. So Michelle, I'm sure both of you and I vote in Haiti. I vote in Haiti. I vote for my elected officials in Haiti. That I haven't elected a president in Haiti since Aristide. When the last time I attempted to, and I voted for a president of the country, the United States came back and said, no, we will not accept that one. We will redo it because we've already selected our president for you and gave us a musician called Mickey. Even though we had leaders in the country, people who could lead the country, and we voted in that election for these particular individuals, the international community, particularly the United States of America, where all of you are here talking about dream defenders, right? Talking about the dream and the American dream and so forth. This is the same nation that went to another nation and says, nope, not this one. We will not accept this president. We will give you this particular president. And that happened under the watch of Hillary Clinton, who came in. We did that. So it is important that as we're having, and I know IT is not going to be alone, that we talk about the bigger powers. But it's true that we have a responsibility. Michi and I, Evans have, Christina have, we are Haitians. As Haitians here, we have a responsibility for the things we need to do, but we also have to pay attention to the ways that white supremacy and colonization is well and alive in this particular conversation that we are talking about. And as we know, dismantling racism and colonization and dismantling white supremacy in the United States has been challenging. So imagine what it's like in no way. So
and to add on to what Dr. G said, sorry, really quickly, not only does it give birth to Mickey as president, it creates this political party which has been at the center of all of these machinations that did not exist. It is not an organic party. That not only has propped up, has given us every succeeding assigned president, but also gives the arms. He not only did Mickey armed his supporters and gave birth to these politically affiliated gangs. Again, something that is not organic to Haiti's rich organizing culture.
That part. Thank you. Wow, that was a beautiful grounding. Thank you all. Because that's basically a summation, a summary of everything we're gonna touch on. Thank you so much. Let's get into the council. They are made up of 8 men and 1 woman. 7 of them have the power to vote. Voting members together have affiliations with Henri, Montana Accord, the Petit Dessalines political party, and more. What insight can you share about how this council came together? Is it even constitutional? Like, how is this constitutional for foreign figures to decide Haiti's political future?
I mean, we can start with the fact that no, it's not constitutional.
No. No, in Espanol, no. You know, all the languages.
It's like where they do that at. Nobody lets another country decide what their process is for installing new political representation. Nobody else.
So why Haiti? What is the core group? The core group. Why are they necessary? Why were they invented? Why do they get to choose this council?
It's an extension of neocolonialism and U.S. imperialism. So not only, and I'm sure that Dr. D can provide more context into some of the other groups, but I want us to take a zoom out a little bit. And yes, the United States is a crucial pillar, and France are crucial pillars to the core group, as well as Canada. But we also have to talk about the fact that Brazil is a key player in the core group.
Yep.
And that this is not this situation, if we're taking the view of, the last 2 years, 2-3 years, this is not just an issue of US imperialism. It is a hemispheric. The entire Western hemisphere has their hands in the sauce, okay? When we look at the utilization of CARICOM as the convener, they are complicit in undoing and undermining Haitian sovereignty and the Haitian constitution. Then we also have other regional players that we'll talk about more, that are also giving validity to this unconstitutional imposition of this council process. I'll pass it to Dr. V.
Listen, you guys shouldn't invite me to these things because you know how I like, I'm just gonna keep it well. I'm gonna give it to you straight.
Oh, we need this.
Okay, here's the thing. The core group we're talking about was created by the United Nations. Let's be clear. It's not a Haitian-led group. This is a group that was created by the United Nations Security Council resolution back in, 2004. And it has representatives to Haiti from various countries, including Brazil, Canada, France, Germany, Spain, the European Union, the United States, and the Organization of the American States. Okay? The group is there. Okay, people, listen to me. This is a group created that is supposed to be there to provide advice on how to resolve Haiti's social, economic, political crisis and improve democracy in the country. Let me repeat that again. This is a United Nations group created not by Haiti, but created by these particular other groups who's supposed to be there to provide advice to this country regarding political, social, economic, and democracy.
Mm-hmm.
This is a nation that has been independent for over 200 years. We are in our 225 years. And a council could be created by the United Nations to advise an independent nation on how it's supposed to live and to provide its advice on its political, economic, and democracy. But on nous clair, bon Dieu, papa. Right? On nous clair, let's be really clear. Right? So this cannot be a group that was already a group that is focusing on development that is created by Haitians for Haitians, as if Haitians do not have the capability of advising its own self.
Right.
its economy and its democracy and so forth. And I don't even use the word democracy because I don't have an example of democracy ever to use. So I don't have an example of it. So it's hard for me to talk about people who are trying to promote democracy in another nation and so on and so forth. So I do think that understanding that, and I advise the people who are listening to this, the people who are here, to be able to say, let me go learn how this core group was created, who made up this core group, right, and so forth, and how is this group really about development in another nation when même là avec nous, neither you or I have an example of how a nation went to another nation to help it develop economically. Now, so guys can tell me I'm lying because we have a good number of people here who can say, I have an example of a nation that went to another nation to help that nation develop economically or politically, right, and so forth. We don't have an example of that. So think
just out of the goodness of their heart.
Out of the goodness of their heart.
Democracy.
Oh, what a false sense, right? So if we already there, and that means there's other entities that can do that. Now you have, this Haitian group, right, this US group, who can say we can form its own council that is there to help create. Not because, let me just repeat this again, not because Haitians did not come up with a way of electing somebody in the country. It was not accepted, and people say, we will create a group for you who will absolutely do that, right, and so on. So it is important, so just so we can start there, so to already recognize that none of what we are talking about is actually taking into account the constitution of the country. And you can tell that when we can have a presidential council who can say diaspora can now run to be prime minister of a country when the constitution of the country says you must have lived in the country. There are requirements for you to be able to do so. So when we can just say, the heck with all of that, wait, you guys made me curse in the thingy, kunya, wait, the heck with all of that, we're not going to do away with the people's own sovereignty. We're not going to think about any of that and so on. We're going to do it the way we do it. Already tells you that we're not talking about an entity that is about the best interests of Haiti. But having said that, I think it is really is important because parce que nous bouquet, as Haitians, the people in Haiti are tired, and we're tired of it all. We're tired of the interference. We're tired of the lack of sovereignty. We're tired of not being able to be leaders of our own destiny. So there's a way that this process is allowing the opportunity, hopefully, for just a moment of just removing that knee on the neck of Haiti for a moment, because there is a group of people that they've put in place to think about what could be an interim prime minister could look like, what could election could look like, and maybe that moment that we have to breathe can possibly allow us the opportunity for me, she can faire ça supposé faire, so she can, go and, lead, get us, right, to the next level, right, as well, so.
Thank you. Evan, I know you wanted to add something.
I'll provide something very brief so we can also move in. I know we have a lot of questions, but just to add additional weight to what Dr. Gerda is talking about, I find when I talk about the core group in a lot of settings, sometimes people can look at you as if you're talking about a conspiracy theory because it seems like that.
Exactly.
Like there's some type of Illuminati. But again, this is not even... this is all material fact, right? When I was staying in DC, I met a former member of NORAD, who was a senior advisor at the time to the Department of Homeland Security. He quit within the last 5 years. And what he told me, the reason he quit was because of how he saw them interacting with Haiti, right? For him as a Black man, he said, watching the way that these types of groups were going around and shaping the economics to prime it for exploitation, right? And he saw the Kenyan force coming from a mile away because it's very clear, right, that this is a project. Christina uses the words neocolonialism. I know some other people use colonialism. It's a very clear process. And so this, what Dr. Guerra, what Christina are talking about is well documented, and it's essential to study this, to understand this, because we have to understand what we're organizing against.
Absolutely.
And to add to what Evan says, and what Dr. Gerda mentioned as well, these groups are not set up for exploration, right? They're set up for exploitation, right? And that process is to create not a false sense of poverty, but to take the profits from the people. And there's a purpose and a reason behind that. And so we have to, as Dr. Nicholas said, look behind it and understand it and own our own purpose and own our own process and build from there.
Absolutely. Misha, you have anything to say? You good? Let's keep it moving. Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. I want to bring in women just because I know that so much of us, our work is informed by the Black feminist tradition, and we're committed to a Black feminist future. There are no women with voting powers on the council, and we're going to get to a few other points as well, but there are no women with voting powers on the council that the core group installed. Yet some of the same political talking heads that formed this council often cry about upholding women's rights and equality. What does the state of Haiti stand to lose when the international community also fails to recognize the legacy of Haitian women, their voices, and expertise? And this is open to everyone.
Yes, this question was a very important question for me, and I feel like I'm also the youngest person on the panel, so definitely open to correction on history or like facts that I'm not getting straight right. But like when we talk about womanhood and when we talk about the legacy of women in Haiti, right? Like Haiti had its first woman president in 1991 and 1992, and she got the job done. She was tasked with the same job that this transitional council has, have free and fair elections, to reinstate democracy, to stabilize Haiti, right? And Madame Tourio, she got the job done. And so when we're just looking from a historical standpoint, right, not including women's voices, women's expertise is a huge disservice to Haiti. Because even as I'm drawing parallels to narrative and storytelling in Haiti, if we were to compare it to Vodou, right, and Haiti has a strong spiritual tradition, and we understand the narrative of Ezili Dantor, like Mama Yitzi, to leave Haiti, to leave women out of the conversation when it comes to this council, when it comes to the leadership of Haiti is a huge disservice. And as we look at it from even a smaller scale, right, when it comes to like the economy in Haitian society, women and girls are the backbone of Haitian society. Like we have to name that. Haiti is very matriarchal, right? And women are leading households, are supporting families. When we look at the diaspora too, we see the same narrative, right? And so the state of Haiti, when it comes to this council, when it comes to women's voices, I feel like there can't be progress without including women into the conversation and just thinking about our spiritual tradition, thinking about our history. We definitely have to include women for there to be progress. And so just wanted to include that because we know that our country is founded by women's contributions and like what we hope to gain in the future from it.
Absolutely. Christina? Dr. Nicola?
I would just say that building on what Michi said is we have this saying of potomitan, and women are the potomitan of Haitian society in its organizing, in its economy, in its liberation struggle, in its political governance. And so this erasure, it does feel like this erasure of women's voices from this council was intentional. Especially when we think about those who have suffered the most under this recent period, including the increase in gender-based violence, and not, I mean, actually, women have in Haiti historically have suffered the most in times of occupation, gender-based violence, dating back to the 1900s. And so I think that this erasure is a really good example of how outside forces are trying to impose their ideas on Haitian society and Haitian culture. And so we have to think about it's not just about capturing our land and governing our people, but it's also about changing our values. And so we have to be able to push back against these notions.
Absolutely.
And the other thing I would add, and I think so make sure you hit like you got the history, and I think the history of women and the Ligue des Féminines of Haiti, for example, of women rights in Haiti goes very, very far, right? And I invite all of y'all, put the link in. There's an excellent book that just got created by a sister friend called White Gloves, something, White Hem something Gloves, that you should all read, because it goes back and shows the history of women and the women movement and in Haiti that goes back over 100 years, right? As a part of that work. But I think it's a testament to the fact that it is clear that Haitians didn't put that council together, right? So if it came from other places, particularly from a nation that has yet to elect a woman president, Haiti did. And there people say, well, what country in the Americas have elected the very first woman president? The answer would be Haiti, right? That have done that. So when you bring in other entities that had never done that, who don't think of women as leaders, as we see here in the United States, right? That the United States have never had a woman president of this particular nation in the way that Haiti have had. So then when you have that mentality, and those are the leaders who are putting forth the next entity and so forth, there's no way to think about women as playing a significant role in that. And so if there's anybody to be, thank you so much, Jeff, for dropping that. That's the book, White Gloves, Black Nation. Excellent, excellent book to read, because it speaks around the importance of that. And I think the finger pointing should not be how come Haitian women were not included in the council, how come Haitians didn't put Haitian women on the council. The question would be, how come the United States did not put women as a voting member of the council? And I think if you ask that question, then the answer is going to be relatively easy to you, right? Because we know what role that women plays in this society.
Pas quitter là, Dr. Guida, parce que I'm a take the baton from you and grab it and run, because we are part of the Dessalines Society, right? We all know who Jean-Jacques Dessalines is. But Jean-Jacques Dessalines, the liberator, the general, the greatest general that ever lived, I would say, was trained by a woman, right? Or had her if we go back to, there's a lot to talk about. We don't have enough time, but we start with, he was trained, and the ideas of guerrilla warfare came from a woman. So that's before the revolution, and then after the revolution, you had women in military. I forget the young lady's name that was part of that as well. One of the soldiers somebody helped me with that. And then we have the market, right? The entrepreneurial side of things, right? The Mara Sarah. I'm gonna put in the chat tomorrow at Miami-Dade College. We're having a documentary on Mara Sarah. It's free for everyone to attend. But Mara Sarah, and I'll talk about this because this is near and dear to me, because the erasure of women, not only on from history till today, is because it's the understanding of the pillars, right? And understanding without those grounded pillars, we can't have something to stand on. And the economic side of it is huge, because without economics, there's no growth, right? Our Amanasalas are entrepreneurs that come from under that great things from the land to feed our people in Port-au-Prince and beyond. And so when you're erasing women in all those spaces, they know exactly why. There's a reason for that. And so it's a lot. But that cannot happen, and we need to find a way to avancer avant, keep moving forward and understanding the economic component of why women are trying to be erased in this space.
Mm-hmm. So I have to say that Yaira Matos added something very crucial. Haitian women working in the garment industry were also critical to finally getting a minimum wage increase after weeks of protests and years of still foreign policy restricting fair wages to benefit other countries. Thank you for that piece of note.
Economics.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's roll on through, because we're getting there. I want to let's touch on before we get to Kenya, let's touch on something. The Haitian people, speaking about the long legacy of Haitian revolution and protest, the Haitian people have long called for the eradication of the core group. In addition to that, they have also protested against the funneling and importing of guns to the island because, as we said earlier, Haiti does not produce weapons. How do these sophisticated, expensive guns made in the U.S. make their way to Haiti's most vulnerable communities? And how is it possible that the Haitian government doesn't have a say in what go through their ports?
Oh, now Kitty, we one question, sir. You guys gonna let me like go in that? It's the Haitian people have been asking the question about, you know, removing the guns for 2.5 years now since the assassination of the president, right? And then the research was done, and we know very well that the 90% of the guns that comes to Haiti comes from the port of Miami. 90% of the guns and the bullets that comes from the port of Miami. That's where it's coming from. And then when it hits Haiti, it goes to a particular port in Miami, in Haiti, and that port is privately owned by one of the richest family in country. So there is a money component to this. Now, we've had a lovely conversation with young people in Haiti just recently and so forth, just in January. And now they're really laughing at us. They said, listen, there's a young people in Haiti, the youth in Haiti saying, listen, Haitians are going to Washington to ask them to stop importing guns and doing something about guns to come in Haiti. When people took guns to the elementary school and shot out blonde and blue-eyed kids in the United States, it didn't stop guns issues from happening in the United States. And you think it's going to do something to actually stop guns to go to a Black nation. So the conversation has been relatively clear to say, because gun is economic, everything, I'm so glad Janita is here, it's economic. If it is profitable, I will not stop to do it, no matter how many lives are lost. So now, because it's a profitable business associated with this, we've been asking to say, for a period of time, let's pause, right? Let's inspect those containers that are going to Haiti and stop those guns to go into Haiti. That's one. Second, let's sanction the people who are financing the gangs also in the country, right, as well. Yeah. So I've got a Zamio, you see in this particular thing, right, and so on. You have to be able to ask yourself, who has the money? No, I don't have that kind of dough. Right. Who has the money to support those kinds of guns that police officers can't even carry in the country, right, and so on. So thinking about not only the sort of the importing of the guns in it, but it's the financing of that also. I think that really is important to be able to think about. Evans when jet la pou, chérie, la pou. Okay.
Yo, I love Dr. Guetta. I'm the biggest fan. She knows that every time I get to share space with her, I'm the biggest fan. And again, just to add some additional context, because I'm seeing some people in the chat, I've had conversations with people either allies, people who are in diaspora and are asking themselves, right, how could I make myself of use to people on the ground, right? And this is one of the ways that we see that like the local is global, right? For an example, in Massachusetts, we had a lot of Palestinian activists, right, shut down arms manufacturers, right? Some of the biggest arm manufacturers in the country that was sending weapons to Israel, right? One of the ways that people, I think, don't make that connection to Haiti through a lot of the global South, right, is because of anti-Blackness. We think about Black people, we think about Haitian people as so inherently violent. We see that violence that goes on in Haiti as endemic to the people without understanding, no, the capacity for the violence that we're seeing, right, is coming from the heart of this empire right here. Right. And so one of the things that we have this privilege of as being in the heart of this empire is how can we use that privilege? How can we use this solidarity, this organizing to intervene on that? Because I'm going to share this in the chat. I saw a bunch of Haitian elders a couple years ago marched through Brooklyn for 3 hours, right, asking for them to stop sending the weapons, and nobody paid attention. Right, does not get the media headlines. They got this one article in the Miami Herald that I shared. Right, so this is one of these areas where we do need, right, transnational group solidarity, right, to intervene on this. So that's what I want to add to that.
Thank you for that. Jay, I know that you're off camera, but if at any moment you want to say something, please do. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been waiting for so long. There are so much things that I wanted to say, especially about the first question. You ask about the actual situation, the reason why the US and the United Nations have removed Ariel Henry on power. So one thing, I mean, I don't want to be off topic. I don't want to go back to that first question. So I'm going to let the conversation, flow. And at the end, if ever I have the chance, I will place a word about that.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
All
I'll
right.
circle back. Thank you. Thanks for that note on how guns make their way in, because I thought that was crazy. I knew that Haiti didn't produce weapons, but I certainly didn't make the connection that the ports were not Haitian ran. As gang violence, as we see gang violence in the news increases, the Kenyan government has agreed to deploy 1,000 officers in Haiti. This would not be possible without the financial or tactical support of the United States. I think that my personal concern, I think many of us maybe who are aware, I have afraid that maybe the general public might see the Kenyan military or police as a symbol of Pan-Africanism. What can Haitians across the diaspora better understand about what this deal means and why the Kenya government accepted?
And so there are three things that I want to just ground us in when we hear peacekeeping. So I was living in Haiti during the peacekeeping mission, in the early 2000s. And so one thing is peacekeeping mission is basically a code word for military occupation, number one. Number two, the country that is hosting the peacekeeping missions have to pay you have to pay the country that is sending the troops, as well as the officers that are serving in the country. So this is not something that is being done out of goodwill. It is literally a transaction for you to have a mercenary force in your country. The terms of the UN peacekeeping mission strictly are around securing government buildings, not removing or fighting the gangs. So what we are seeing is a smoke and mirror show to make it seem as if the international community values the lives of Haitians who have been living under terror for the past decade. What is actually going to happen, which is why the first the first peacekeeping mission ultimately left after raping, bringing cholera, and exploiting our country, is to give this semblance of security and law and order. 1,000 officers are not going to do anything standing in front of government buildings. That is not going to solve the issue of gun trafficking. It's not going to just solve the issue of having any free and fair elections or to give any validity to this sham. So what we're seeing is blackface on US imperialism and colonialism. That is all that we're seeing. And even my folks in Kenya are like, why would they send the police? They can't even do anything in Kenya. They are not an effective force. So even folks in Kenya are saying that this is utterly ridiculous and apologize because this is not our.
I know, Evan, you have something to say, so does Mishi.
Mishi, please.
No, I definitely wanted to tap in. Thank you, Evan, very quickly. For me, it's like, as organizers, like one of our first instincts is to follow the money, like follow the freaking money. And if we look at like this interference by Kenya, right? They're strong allies of the United States. I believe they have like a 60-plus-year allyship with the United States. The United States has committed like millions of dollars to this operation and committed to give intelligence support, communication support, everything, right, to kind of support this interference. And we have to ask the question, why is that? And I think the reason that is why Kenya is rushing to the table is because they want to push themselves as, as these leaders, right? In the sense they have their own security concerns and defense work that they're doing in Africa as well. And the US being an ally to them and supporting that work would be extremely beneficial to them. And so them interfering, them deploying police officers to Haiti isn't Pan-Africanism. It's just them being agents of the US and the US imperialistic agenda. And so it's not Pan-Africanism, it's blackface and just another attempt from the US, right, to interfere. And they did it before. The Minister, after 2004, right, were primarily folks of Brazilian descent. And when we think of Brazil, right, Brazil being the largest black country like on the Western Hemisphere, right? It's blackface. It was blackface, right? And it's blackface again with Kenya deploying folks to Haiti. And when we think of like what this could possibly do, how the population or folks in Haiti are going to respond to this, it's not going to be met with hugs and high fives. It's not. It's going to be met with folks being angry, possibly met with violence, because we saw what happened after 2004 with the Minister and like how it affected folks living in Haiti. I was in Haiti during the time, right? And so like we know what this is going to end up with. So people aren't going to be hugging them. So what stabilization is going to happen in Haiti? If anything, this is definitely something that would destabilize Haiti even more and have even larger implications and larger ramifications. And so wanted to add that piece in around the money and then the impacts of like what this is actually going to do.
Thank you, Mishi. Evan, and I know Jace wants to say something, and then we can move on to the last question so we can open it for the audience.
Yeah, so the pieces I wanted to add is there was a really good webinar from the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, and a scholar by the name of Samar Al-Balushi talked about this history of Kenya as a security force allying itself with the United States, extending back to when the United States leaned on them following, I think, some attacks in Nairobi in 1998. And so it's had this history of trying to, the state of Kenya establish itself globally as a security force. And the problem with this, like Christina notes, right, is in terms of promoting peace, we know it's extremely ineffective. What I was going to add to what Christina said is what they are effective at is violence. Right, we know that the Kenyan police force, as many of the Kenyan population has reported in their protesting of the Kenya deploying this police force, is they played a tremendous role in suppressing and oppressing minority populations in Kenya. Right, killing, harming predominantly Muslim populations in Kenya. Right? And so we know that through the mandate, there's no real motivation for them to protect the civilian population of Haiti. And so when they come in, we know that they're trying to protect the very groups we talked about as illegitimate, right? That's their role, right? If we want to use the language of gangs, right, this is a gang that's being instituted to protect, right, core group interests, not the civilian population. And so the difficulty is you'll have a lot of people say, I'm talking to the Haitian people, and they want safety, they want security. Right? We don't know what to do because of the amount of violence. Right? I'll say some of my colleagues and I, Dr. Guerra knows Dr. Judy Blanc, one of my students, Nyara Karanar, we led a focus group project. And the current state is dire for a lot of people in Haiti. People are experiencing severe mental health problems, a lot of people. Right? So we don't want to make light of that. The violence is harmful, right? People are are hurting. Right? If you could sit with some of these people, you would feel the pain. I know people on the panel, probably people in the panel and in the audience know that. And what's being promoted as safety is just more violence, right? And that's the thing that we have to center. And so I think as we move forward in the conversation, I know we're running short on time, but we'll talk about some of the Haitian-led solutions that do represent solid, safe alternatives.
Okay. Jay, and then we're gonna.
Yes. I'm gonna go straight to the point to say this mission has nothing to see with peace. They have done it in the past. They know that it won't work, but they trying to do it just because every time they want to do something bigger, something hidden from the population, they need to have like some type of excuse to invade the country and do it. In 2024, the forces they sent was bigger than the one that they're about to send. And the violence, the level of violence that we experiencing now is like way bigger than 2024. But what they brought to us was cholera, a lot of petit sans papa, and more problem. So I don't know, they making, I know they making Haiti pay for being the drop that helped all Black people in the world see the importance of independence because of, and then slavery was a source of economy for them. Because of that, we have to pay. That's one of the reason why. And the other reason is our resources. We have a lot of natural resources. They trying to steal from us. I mean, not trying, they
are
stealing from us. And then every time they want to come and do something, because they know that if they come like with no mask on, the population will understand, the international community will understand, and then see if they can like stop them. They have to find a reason. So this forces the Ariel Henry situation, the violence, the guns that they've been sending to Haiti for years. All of those things are connected. The fact that the education system in Haiti is infiltrated, because if you want to put someone on his knees, first thing you have to do is like I think they call it jugular. So attack it. The education is the jugular of a nation. So they attack the education, and then now, it's step by step, nothing new. This force will come, bring more problem, and then leave.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, for, Jay. That's incredibly important. I think contrary to what mainstream media tells us, Haiti is not a poor country. There are poor people and impoverished people, but the land itself is rich as hell. So here's our last question before we take a few from our Q&A box here from our audience. It should be said, I think it bears mentioning here that there's a long and complicated and often obscured history shared between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Understanding that today there are generations of Haitians and Dominicans of Haitian descent born, living, and working in the Dominican Republic, what could the Dominican government be doing if they were operating on siblinghood, on solidarity and love? What could they be doing that they're not to help Haiti during this time? And that's open to everyone.
I always count seconds before I open my mic because like I'm giving it a couple seconds for that to happen. I think it's connected, for me, in terms of the Kenyan conversation that we have. There's a way that white supremacy would like us to pen one against the other, and it would make it look like as if our issues is with our brothers and sisters on the same island, the Dominican Republic. I'm concerned about my brothers and sisters in the DR. I'm concerned what the future of Dominicans look like for the future, because I do not believe, I think there's an awakening that needs to happen in the whole entire island in Haiti, in Haiti, because the whole island was named that, and for the most part. because otherwise it makes it feels like as if we have issues with our own, but we don't have issues with our own. I'm not sure whether or not the DR has been a sovereign nation and is governing in itself for the most part. I think there's a selection process also that's also taking place in the DR. And I say this because, again, it's about money. So if you look, for example, the history of even just the sugarcane experience, right, that we can cite more recently in terms of Haiti. But the reason why a lot of Haitians went to the DR for sugarcane is because the United States offered the DR to be its #1 exporter of sugar. So because it says we will only buy sugar from you, the DR goes and finds some people who can help it make some money. But then the same exact people who said we will only buy sugar from you also comes back and say, oops, sorry, we are sweet and low people now. We are splendor people now. And so we will not be buying. And then there's the issue of like, okay, what does the DR do now with all the Haitians who came to actually do the plantations regarding the sugar and so forth? So and it's exactly the same thing we have in the conversation regarding Kenya, because there's a way that white supremacy and anti-Blackness and these kinds of things want to pin one Black against the other, right? And it will look like the issue that we're having is Kenya. The issue that we're having is the Dominican, right? It's Dominicans and DR. And it's not to say that the conflict doesn't exist and the issues aren't there, but we have to take a look up and say, who is behind creating that conflict so we don't feed ourselves into it, and then we end up hating our own brothers and sisters. And when we start to do that, we're hating ourselves. So I don't profess to engage in the conversation about what is wrong with Dominicans, what is wrong with the DR, what is wrong, because we want to promote the harmony that needs to happen in the whole entire island, right? And ways that we all need to wake up and recognize the larger role that what Evan talks a lot about in terms of white supremacy and anti-Blackness and right plays a role in the island, and how can we come together? And that's really what I'm about. I'm about the coming together as a collective and less about the separation of our. Evan, I pass to you.
Thank you.
I wanted to give space to Jay also, because I saw Jay had his hand up.
Jay,
Yes,
you have your.
Yes, I'm going to speak as a person who has spent a few years in Dominican Republic. Before I get into the question, I would like to point something. I know that here in the US and in Haiti, we see Dominicans as enemies, but that's not really the case. I've been in DR and I witnessed love in each and every single Dominican brother and sisters that I've met, that I have the chance to become friends with. So let's get into the question now. I'm not waiting for the Dominican Republic to do anything for the situation happening in Haiti. The reason is because it's something that benefits the Dominican Republic. Dominican Republic, I don't have the numbers, but Dominican Republic sell millions of visas to Haitians every year. That's a lot of money. Haitian workers who cannot find jobs in Haiti, they have to go to the Dominican Republic. They are not well paid. Even if they are the hardest worker, they work the most, or they don't get they don't get paid fairly. Also, Haiti, people say it's the United States, but I believe that Haiti is the first commercial partner. It's not even a partner, because when you have a partner, you do fair business with a partner. But the buyer, the Dominican products buyer, is Haiti. So if I can make money with the situation, if this situation is helping my economy to grow, Why would I have to intervene? Why would I have to take action? So that's the reason why I think that we shouldn't be waiting for any Dominican president, Dominican leader to take action to change the situation, to
Yeah, no,
help change the
that wasn't,
situation
yeah,
in Haiti.
100%. 100%. That wasn't the question. I'm putting the onus on the Dominican Republic, not the onus on Haiti. Because the Dominican Republic happily accepts their white immigrants. They love Russians, they love Italians, they love, but there's always that's not the question. I wanted
They
to
only love
I
the
wanted
Haitians' labor.
to I was curious to hear from Haitian voices about what they thought could happen. The Dominican president isn't Dominican either. So just an FYI. He's Lebanese, he's Spanish. So he's not Dominican either. And yeah, I think that there is that not a responsibility from DR, but certainly there's Dominicans on the grounds doing the work. I know that for a fact. It doesn't happen. It doesn't get seen in the headlines or the news. But I think that we have a responsibility to each other. So I would beg to differ and say that we have a responsibility to each other. And I think now we'll have
real quick, super duper
yes,
quick.
Evan, yes. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Please feel funk. I know, yeah, the time because this is such a lively conversation. I love it. I'm gonna pull from ancestor Marcus Garvey, who said his biggest mistake was he tried to change the world before he changed the hearts of men. Right. And so I'm gonna big up the work of InCultured Company, right? I think that's one of the engines that we're talking about, right? You referenced the Dominican government, a lot of the Dominican political parties, many of whom are just immersed in a sea of anti-Blackness. They can't see their way out of it. Anti-Haitianism, right? The way that they understand it is rooted and interwoven with those conceptions of anti-Blackness. And so the work of InCultured Company with the workshops, and a lot of people do this work, but is transforming people's conceptions of their own history, of their own spirit, of their own politics, so that we can have this understanding, right? Like Dr. Guerra references, we're on the same island. We should be the same people, right? Spiritually, in many ways, we are the same people. Right? And so how do we reconnect, right, that level of consciousness? That's Mumi Abu Jamal, who says there's no borders in consciousness, right? So how do we connect that consciousness so that we can push this political project forward? Right? That's what I was going to add.
And I wanted to add one more thing.
And then I wanted to add one.
Okay,
So-
let's go. We're over 8 o'clock, so if
know.
anyone else want to stay, please stay. We do have an interesting question on spirituality that I would like to raise from the audience.
So we talked about the economics, but I'm also an artist. And if you looked at the high level, like what Dr. Gita says, we look at it from the high level, that man-made split in the middle. I see that man-made split in the middle as a spine. So if you look at that spine and we identify how that spine balances all those things, what the difference is, yet so much that we have in common. If we could take that spine and understand what it's a spiritual connection on multiple levels, right? It's the nerve endings. So if we can find a way to understand that there is what Jay said, the love and embracement and the elevation of all of our people, of us, Haiti, the land of hills and mountains, right? So that means that we have these challenges that we can overcome if we come together. So from the artist perspective, it is our responsibility to see the commonality, the push against white supremacy or this economic destruction that these systems want us to fight against. We understand if we all get together, the economics will be great and we'll do really well. But from the artist's perspective, I think that spine, that fictional line, is more not just something to separate us, but truly something that could bring us together.
Absolutely.
I want to add something. Just
Oh, wait, sorry.
Okay. You can go.
Sorry, Christina had mentioned something first, and then Jay, go ahead after.
So and a little bit of my personal story, I think being from a community like Tomasique, which is on the border with Haiti and Dominican Republic, and it also just has this deep history of being like the border crossed us, we didn't cross the border situation. we cannot forget that not only is the border is artificial for all of the communities who live along that line. My family goes back and forth every day, and likewise, at a certain point, like there is no, despite all of the rhetoric and the neo-Trujilloism, we have to remember that it's people who make borders, and the people on the border do not feel that way and do not perpetuate this culture. And so I don't think, and I know that oftentimes, particularly in this moment and in this election in Dominican Republic, like it feels like the hope is lost because so much of the rhetoric is centered around this Haitian migration problem and all of that. There are amazing organizations in Dominican Republic that do amazing solidarity work. And so I definitely don't want to like erase that yes, like we have work to do in diaspora in terms of like educating and educating and advocating. I think there's plenty of opportunity for that. And that happened, I think, when Abner came here in New York, and it was both Dominicans and Haitians that protested him everywhere he went.
Yep.
He heard a pushback from his own compatriots, right? So that is one way to be in solidarity. And then the other is to really support the organizations on the ground in Dominican Republic that are doing the grassroots organizing, that are doing the legal advocacy, that are having shelters for folks, that are defending folks' rights in Dominican Republic. And again, like that doesn't get the headlines, that doesn't trend on social media, but it is happening, and it's at great risk too.
Absolutely, at great risk.
So I want to big.
Thank you for that, Jay. Before we get into a
Yes.
question of the audience.
Yes, I really like your intervention. I would like to also add the fact that at the beginning of my intervention, I've highlighted the fact that I've experienced love and appreciation in Dominican Republic for the couple of years that I've lived there.
Sure.
And the reason why I did that is because as you just mentioned it, I mean, everyone just mentioned it, is because I know that in the media, in the mainstream media, the politicians, they mainly talk about the differences, the problems, the hate, you understand, but they don't really talk about the bond that has between Haitians and Dominican Republic. They do not really highlight it. So that's why I believe in compound actions. That's why every time I have to talk about the situation between Dominican Republic and Haiti, I make sure that I educate the person I'm talking to about the fact that we have to separate Dominican population to the Dominican government every time we're talking about the situation happening, because as I said it earlier, I've met some of the greatest people in Dominican Republic.
Thank you, Jay. We're gonna take 2 questions from the audience, and I'm so sorry, and it's really because we're just gonna stay here all night if we don't cut it off at some point. On the topic of spirituality, and I'm so sorry because I didn't take your name. It's not in the box. I took it from the webinar chat. Someone said, I am interested in knowing if there are Haitian voodoo spiritualists who are also invoking the energy that was demonstrated in the Haitian Revolution. So really, that's a great seg into maybe, Evan, you can say a little bit about what the role of spirituality plays in revolution in times of unrest.
Yeah, and I know we're going to have some people who have some additional comments to make on that. But so one of the things I want to say, right, is a lot of the times I've seen this in a lot of grassroots movements. People look at religion, people look at spirit as an evasive ideology, right? It takes people away from their conditions on the ground, the politics of what's necessary, the resistance that's needed for people to get free. And that's never been the tradition of African revolutionary spirit, right? All our peoples have a history of using their spirit, using their religion, right, to promote freedom, right? I'm going to pull from a Black liberation psychologist named Amos Wilson. He says, even though I revere the African past and I revere the African tradition, that tradition can be built upon. I and my generation have something to add to that tradition. I have a right to use the legacy of that tradition to confront the realities of my current times and thus modify that tradition and see to the survival of my people. So when we talk about Haitian Vodou, right, we're talking about one of the upmost in revolutionary spiritual consciousness, right? When you look at resistance in IET, you're talking about Francois Macandal, you're talking about Boukman, right? You're talking about Fatima, you're talking about people who use spiritual and religious technologies to guide resistance movements by being in connection with earth, being in connection with spirit, being in connection with community, right, to shape reality. We know that guided the Haitian Revolution, that guided the Cauca Rebellion to the point where the U.S. occupying forces went to war with the Vodou drums themselves, right? There's documented notes of this. At a certain point, they couldn't find people, so they just started shooting the drums because they couldn't understand the persistence in the resistance. And so today, right, what this looks like now, we have a lot of people who are using the culture of Haitian Vodou, not as escapism, right, but to better understand and better guide new political futures. Right? So I'm going to call out, for instance, we've been working with Nadej Robertson, right? Dr. Gerda knows Nadej, a brilliant, okay, Yaneta knows Nadej as well, right? A brilliant, brilliant individual who's deeply rooted, right, in the Haitian and Arawak traditions, right, and bringing those to the table to guide political futures, right? So the work of Foundation Espoir, the work of La Coup La Paix, for instance, which kind of pierce us through this harsh binary of these Haitian people are the bad Haitian people. These are the criminals that we need to kill. These are the good Haitian people that we can lead through. It helps us understand what African-centered psychologists would call diunido, right? That helps us see the both and of it, right? And build a future that contains the humanity and the spirit of all Haitian people, right? One of the interventions we do using Haitian spirit, for instance, are the Salbona healing circles, right? We lead or constructing healing circle movements in Haiti. This leverages the traditions, the ceremonies, right, to help people both process the harm of what's going on, right, and imagine new futures through it, right? So that's just one example of how this is leading, I would say, like radical political and psychological futures for the island. And again, I know we have people here who do that work too, so I'm gonna back off that.
Thank you. Mishi, I know you have something to say.
Yes, and my comment is going to be short and definitely going to be speaking from my analysis and personal experience, right? When we look at the structure of Vodou, right, and the ancestral connections that all Haitian people are connected to within the Vodou pantheon, spirituality is integral, right, to like the way that we process the world and the way that we process our community and like what needs to be done, right, like Evan said, around our futures. But it's also integral to our politic and the way that we organize. And so like, as I'm thinking about that as ancestral connection in the Loire, our ancestors were incorporated into laws, right? The deities, right? And how like that's so important for Haitian families and different mutations within Haiti, right? Like spirituality is definitely important. I guess my call to action or like just a piece for folks who are in the diaspora who shun Haitian Vodou, right? I think like in our community, Vodou is very shunned, right? Especially in diaspora circles or folks who don't really understand the ancestral linkage or understand the way that it allows folks to process and develop. Take a little bit to kind of understand why Vodou is important and how it can dictate our futures. And then also for folks who are on the younger end, right, who don't have a connection to Vodou or to Haitian ancestral spirituality, how can you question your parents and question your families about how it plays like in the present for them? Because I think it's very important to the conversation. And I will say, like, we can't talk about organizing, Haitian organizing or Haitian organizers without bringing up spirituality because of our history and the way that it allows us to cope and then also develop what we need for the future. So just wanted to add that, especially for younger folks, right, who might not have that connection. For me specifically, I had to go and search for that, right, to kind of make that connection. And so for the youth who are on this call, who may not have the foundation or may not have the conversations with their families to have those conversations, because we're all connected to Vodou and spirituality.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, for lifting that. I think Dr. Gerda has something to say.
No, so it's just really like it warms my heart to hear Mishi speak this way, because I think that I think we have to make that distinction between religion and spirituality. They're not the same thing. We use them interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Religion is used as a way to condition people, to create a mindset, and to make us be afraid of who we are. Spirituality is not about that. It's a way that allows us the opportunity to be connected. And so as Mish is speaking and talking about, and so beautifully, and saying the things that we need to do, there's something in your mind that's going to ask, because we've been conditioned to hate ourselves. We've been conditioned to hate the very thing that could be connected, that we're all connected to as well. So we've been conditioned to fear Black, to fear anything that looks like us, that speaks like us, that sounds like us, that allows for our own healing. And so there is the mountain climbing that we're going to have to do as an individuals to get above, right? What is it being told us about ourselves, to go outside of that box, to be connected to exactly what Misha was talking about, because the blockage is clear, is there. So even the idea of using the word or saying the word or doing anything related to that leads to fear. And we have to pause and ask ourselves, what is it that I'm afraid of? When the slavery and colonization, white supremacy, has a way of making you afraid of your own self. And this is what it's about. And how do we work through that to allow us to be able to connect to that larger spiritual self and that Misha's talking about.
Absolutely. That was beautiful. I don't think that there's anything. I think that's the way to end. Yeah, I think Saudi, if you can drop the link to the resources so that folks who attend can have access to it.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so we have a really jam-packed resource list. I want to share it. I already had put the link on the page, but I will make sure to share it again. We have a lot of orgs that you can follow on social media and support. Also, we have lots of reading resources, including an 18-page reading list curated by the InCultured team, which normally we sell, but we're making it available to everybody in this webinar. There are other readings that are available, organizations in the DR, but also in the Haitian diaspora. We have a week of action coming up. We have events happening all over the tri-state area in solidarity. And we also have 3 fundraisers that you can support. The first is a fundraiser for La Paix, which is a Haitian peace building organization that Evan mentioned, that is doing fantastic work around like thinking in a relational healing justice, really restorative justice perspective. We also have the Decolonizing Hispaniola workshop, which is a workshop that we do at InCultured that supports Dominicans and Haitians and having these extended conversations and building together towards a different future. We have that workshop coming up July 13th in New York City at the People's Forum. And then we also have the giving link for IT Community Trust. So you can also support the trust in that way. And we're collecting everything that you also are sharing, hoping we will be able to follow up with you soon. So thank you all so much.
Can I just add one thing to what you just said, Saudi, please? Because I hope that all of us, not just the people on the Zoom, all of us who's watching this are recognizing that we have a responsibility for the education. We have been conditioned to wait for people to bring us some soup, put it in our mouth, make sure we swallow it, and then we can drink it. We have got to, there has to be an awakening that happens among the 130 something of us that are still in this Zoom post 8 o'clock we're supposed to be in, to say, I recognize that I have to go and unlearn some things that I have been taught so I can relearn some things so that I'm not waiting for somebody to really be able to educate me. That is our own call to action. It is an individual one that we have to take on to say, I am going to take the responsibility, not because Michi is going to educate me about Haiti, not because I'm Haitian and I need to be educated, but I'm going to take responsibility to go educate myself about Haiti, about the DR, about Puerto Rico, about the Hawaiians, about the Native Americans here. I'm going to take responsibility to do that because it is 2024 and we know very well that the education system is not built to educate us in the way that we should be educated about who we are, which means we have to make the extra effort to go above and beyond that, to educate ourselves, to educate the next generation, so that in 20 years, because Dream Defenders will be around for a very long time, because it recognized that the dream must be defended. Okay. The dream must be defended. It's going to be around for a very long time. But I certainly do not want Yanata's kid to have to be speakers coming in to educate other people again, because we have not taken the responsibility to ensure that we educate ourselves. So let us make a vow.
Let us make a vow.
Let us make a vow as speakers, as attendees, as people who are coming into the space to say, no more will we let other people educate us. No more will we let other people educate our children and our grandchildren. No more. No more, no more, no more, no more, no more. Is that a song? No more, no more, no more. Right? No more, right? That we will do ensure that we are educating ourselves so that we are not afraid of each other.
Singing our way to liberation. I know that's right. Thank you.
Hold on. That song is Hit the Road, Jack, right? And so let's hit the road to be civically engaged. Let's hit the road. That's one of our pillars at IT Community Trust. What does that mean? I do not like complaints. I'm sick and tired of people complaining. It doesn't work for me. I am solution driven and I have a growth mindset. It doesn't work. So let's get out there. And if the people that we don't vote for represent what we're about and the issues that we need, we kick them out and we run for that office. We take ownership of that. And then once we do that, that leads into not only defending the dream, but making that dream come alive, right? And one of my favorite artists is Nas, right? And I love the acronym of next actionable step. That next actionable step is to get involved and get engaged. From the arts to education, like Dr. Girda says, and literally hit the road, Jack, because no more, no more, no more. We will not be able to deal with this because it's not good for our mental health. It's not good for economics. It's not good for any of those things. So I get passionate about being purposeful. I apologize, but
no apologies. Thank you.
Let's go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Jay, for signing on as last minute as you did. Thank you, Yanata. Thank you, Evan. Thank you, Dr. Girda Nicola. Thank you, Mishi. Thank you, Manuela in the back logistics. Thank you, Imani, for running logistics on streaming and our wonderful social media manager, Imani. Thank you, Dream Defenders. Thank you, InCultured. Thank you, every attendee who showed up, because you clearly showed up because you cared. This is very important. I know that the world is tugging us in so many different ways, in so many different places. Thank you for being here. And I hope that this served you. I hope that you walked away with knowing something more. And I hope that these action items helps you. Again, I cannot be thankful enough for everyone's brilliance on this panel. This would not have been possible without you. Thank you. And have a good night, everyone. Be safe.
Thank you for excellent moderating too. Thank you.
Thank you.
And navigating all these emotions and all, also. So thank you for leading.
Absolutely.